What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Politically Insane Late Night Show. It's great to be back with you, and today I am joined by the one and only Britton.
How's it going?
Thanks for joining. Of course, for those who know, Britton is my brother, so he was able to hop on with me. I was supposed to have Kaylee Campbell on again this week. She had something come up; she couldn't join. Britton was able to join me though, so I've got somebody. And then Tyler was caught up with other things, so he was not able to join us tonight. But I have Britton, so I guess he'll do. Before we get going tonight, I do want to start off by mentioning our sponsors. Tonight, we are sponsored by probably one of my favorite sponsors. We are sponsored by We the People Holsters. We the People Holsters, they really do have a great product, and the greatest product that they have, of course, is in their name, their holsters. They have great Kydex holsters, and their holsters they really are amazing. They're hard plastic, but they're comfortable. The way that they fit inside, they've got inside the waist holsters and that I've used, and I like them a lot. They're great. And the one thing that I love about them is that your gun will literally slip in and it will click into the holster. That's one cool thing that I love about their holsters. It's something that doesn't happen with a lot of holster brands. So if you're needing a holster, go to wethepeopleholsters.com and you can use code INSANE for 15% off. It's not just holsters either. You can also get great apparel, things like shirts and hats and all kinds of stuff. You can get a shirt like this, the Let's Go Brandon shirt. This is one of them that they sent me. I think the thing that sets this Let's Go Brandon shirt out from the rest is just the cool patches. They've got a cool We the People patch, and they've also got the cool American flag on the other shoulder. The shoulder patches were a big seller point to me. But you can always go to wethepeopleholsters.com and use code INSANE for 15% off. And of course, I do want to also mention that you guys can always support us here at the Patriotic Youth and Politically Insane by going to thepatrioticyouth.com/shop, and you can use code INSANE for 10% off there. And it also lets Tyler know that I'm the one that sent you. And of course, you can always join us here, wherever you're watching this, on every Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we are usually always streaming to Rumble, to YouTube, to Twitter, Twitch, and Facebook. So wherever you're joining us, you can always join us there. And then, of course, every Monday, we are posting a podcast. You can tune in on whatever podcast app you use, Apple Podcast, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. You can join us there, tune in, and a great way to help us out is just by giving us a 5-star rating. You can do that on Apple Podcast, and now you can also do that on Spotify. So go there and give us a 5-star rating. It's a great way to help us out. But what we've got today is we are going to get into talking about Anthony Fauci and him kind of sparring with Rand Paul again. We're also going to go down and talk about President Harris and how she speaks out on the COVID progress. And then we'll also talk about Biden's vaccine mandate and how it is failed. We have one for those who were filing lawsuits. We did win as really just as overall as Americans, as patriots, those who do not want to comply with those kinds of mandates. His mandates did fail. And then we'll end off with a little game and, of course, ending it with this week in history as well. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Of course, something that many of you might have seen is Fauci and Rand Paul kind of getting into it, had a little sparring match, got into a heated debate, and it was in the Senate hearing this past Tuesday. And as they were getting into this heated debate, something we got to realize is that these two don't like each other. Rand Paul and Fauci have not gotten along, and it's mainly just because of Fauci's arrogance and Fauci constantly lying and misleading the people. There's all kinds of things. And Rand Paul really just wants to point out Fauci's mistakes, and he wants to point out why Fauci deserves to be fired. And there's so many things, and we'll get to them. There's so many things that Fauci has done, and he really does deserve to be kicked out of his role. And Rand Paul has spoken on that many times. And this past Tuesday was one of them. I'm going to go ahead and play one clip for you, just so you can all see this and kind of see where Rand Paul was firing back at Fauci. And of course, I didn't want to pull out too much from it, just because it is a lot that was all packed in. But we'll talk about quite a bit of it. Let's go ahead and roll one clip.
Do you really think it's appropriate to use your $420,000 salary to attack scientists that disagree with you?
The email you're referring to was an email
of Dr. Collins to me, if you look at the email.
That you responded to and hurried up and said, I can do it. We got something in Wired magazine.
No. I think in usual fashion, Senator, you are distorting everything about me.
Did you ever object to Dr. Collins' characterization of them as friends? Did you write back to Dr. Collins and say, no, they're not friends, they're esteemed scientists, and it would be beneath me
I did not
to do that? You responded to him that you would do it, and you immediately got an article in Wired, and you sent it back to him and said, hey, look, I've got him. I nailed him in Wired of all scientific
That's not
publications.
what went on. There you go again.
That
You
was your
just do the
response.
same thing every hearing.
That was your response. And this wasn't the only time.
All right. So one thing that I want to point out here is, and this is just a part of it, but what Rand Paul was doing there is he read off parts of emails between Fauci and others that they were really discrediting different doctors who had doctorate degrees from Harvard and Stanford and all of these very big schools, these very well educated schools. If you're graduating from Harvard or Stanford or any of these schools that he listed off there, they're very good schools to graduate from. And Fauci mocks them. And there's been several times where he's done this, but Rand Paul pointed this out in one of the emails that Fauci sent back and forth. And of course, you can see here where Fauci's trying to kind of get out of it, and he really doesn't have any defense. He doesn't have any way he can back himself up. But you know, it's funny to me to see this because usually Rand Paul is not the greatest at attacks. In my own opinion, I just don't think he's usually that great at attacking. But in this case, he sat there and he kept on letting him have it. He wasn't letting Fauci speak, and he kept on attacking. And in this clip, that's why I wanted to pull that one up, is just because I think he did a really good job of making sure to attack. He wasn't allowing anything. He wasn't allowing Fauci to say anything. He was just in attack mode, and it was good. But what you can see there is Fauci's trying to say that he's distorting these messages when Rand Paul literally just read verbatim what was said in these emails. And Fauci responded in these emails saying things, you know, about how really kind of talking down about these other doctors. And Fauci himself, something else Rand Paul says is how Fauci himself, he calls himself the science himself, basically. He says that if you're arguing with him, you're arguing with the science. And that's just something that Rand Paul is trying to point out about Fauci. And he wants people to see this because Fauci is such a liar, and he is constantly doing these things and putting down other doctors because they don't agree with him. And it's something that Rand Paul did a very good job in this hearing about kind of pointing out about Fauci. But it's just something. Fauci's just such a snake. Did you have something there, Britton?
I don't know. I just like any clip that has Rand Paul on it.
Yeah.
It is definitely, I don't know. It's definitely hard to watch. I mean, everything that he's done, all the lies that he's told, all the times that he's gone back on what he said, and apparently, supposedly, this is something that's like life or death, like this major problem, and yet this is an individual that we're trusting, somebody that's going back on what they say, that's continuously been caught in lie after lie. And he's the one that we're putting in charge as the doctor to tell America what we should and shouldn't do during this pandemic. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and that's just the thing is that Fauci's done this time and time again, and the reason why they gathered together was all of this. You know, he's all of this that he's been doing, and Rand Paul has been trying to put together things to fire Fauci. And he even has something put up on his own website to where people can donate towards trying to fire Fauci. And Fauci tried using that against him. But that's the whole point of what this hearing was about. They got together to try to discuss what Fauci had been doing wrong because Rand Paul wants him fired. He wants him removed from his position. And it's kind of ridiculous. Britton and I were talking earlier today about how Fauci, and this is something that was brought up in that same hearing, was that Fauci, he's the most highest paid federal employee, and he's a bureaucrat. He wasn't voted in. He's the highest paid federal employee, and even out earns the president, 4-star generals, and several other of his colleagues All of these colleagues that he's higher paid than any of them, and his position is just the the director of National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. And this past year in 2020, I guess not this past year, but a year before, in 2020, it was released that Fauci made $434,312. That was in 2020. And then in 2019, $417,608. This is all from Forbes. So he's making over $415,000 a year, at least in the past 2 years, over $430,000 in 2020. And he's not even voted in. This is just his salary. That's what this man is put in charge of. He's getting paid so much, and he's done nothing but lie and mislead the people.
See, and here's where I sit with that. I have no problem with what they pay him. I think the salary is what it is. I think that somebody in that position ought to be paid pretty dang well. This ought to be somebody that we can trust with the lives of Americans. This is a very, very highly important job. What I do have a problem with is when we're just willing to give that job to anybody without having any sort of voting whatsoever. That's what I have an issue with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a stressful job. If he's doing his job right, it is going to be a stressful job, and you're going to have a lot that you're going to have to do, and you're going to have a lot that you're going to have to focus on. But it's pathetic whenever you look at Fauci and see all that he's done, and that kind of leads us into where we go back and we look at all the times that Fauci has lied about, really since COVID. We can back up to even the AIDS epidemic and look at what Fauci did there, and just from that alone, we should be able to say that Fauci should have been fired. He didn't want to admit that this was something that was transmitted between homosexuals that were engaging in sexual relations. He didn't want to admit that.
I could cure AIDS. I'm just saying.
He didn't want to admit the truth, and there's so many times that he's gone against the science, but then he himself is saying that this is directly what he said in the past, is that if you're questioning him, then you're questioning the science. And that's just ridiculous. And that's where we all come up with this statement. Many of us on the right, we tease him about being the science. He is the science, and he literally calls himself the science in that statement. That if you disagree with him, you disagree with the science. There's been several times where he's been wrong. Several times where he's just totally gone against the science. So I don't understand how he can call himself the science when he's going totally against it.
I thought about a good shirt for you. You should put something about he's not the science, he's the hypothesis.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, he really is too. He's just, what if, then, that's about it. And all of his ifs and thens are totally wrong. And that's the thing too. And I think we've mentioned this on the show before, is true science is questioning science. True science is looking at science and questioning it and trying to figure out if it's wrong and trying to prove it wrong, really. And if you can prove it wrong, then you found out the true science. But what Fauci wants us to do, and what many in the government want us to do, is ignore science and trust them because they are the science. Fauci is the science. Listen to them. And kind of flashing back and seeing some of the things that Fauci has said in the past. There's been several times, and he's definitely gone back and forth between whether to wear a mask or not. This is something that we've seen constantly. We see back in 2020, this is about March 2020. This is a direct quote from Fauci. He said, "Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask." This is a quote from Dr. Fauci himself. And I don't even like to say Dr. Fauci, Anthony Fauci, little leprechaun Fauci. There's just so many times that he said things. Right there, he says there's no reason for people to be walking around in masks. No reason at all. But we know that that's not the position he holds anymore today. We know that that's not the same position he has.
Shouldn't you wear like
Here he
3 or
is.
4 of them?
What was that?
Shouldn't you be wearing 3 or 4 of them?
Yeah. Yeah, so we know that, back then whenever he said this, this is another thing that's funny too, is that this was back when we really didn't know much about COVID. And many of us, even on the right, were even saying, maybe masks could be good in certain situations and the way that you wear them. And I think many of us would still agree with that today, not necessarily for COVID anymore, because we realize that COVID is really nothing to be fearing. But back then he says this, and whenever he said that you should not be walking around in masks, this was just a couple of days prior to COVID being officially announced as a global pandemic. So here he is telling people not to wear a mask, which at the time we weren't sure maybe this could help. And this was right before it was announced as a global pandemic. So it kind of seems silly there. And of course, he goes back and forth. But then he also goes on later on where we know that, and you made a joke about shouldn't we be wearing 4 of them. But Fauci was being serious when he said it's just common sense that we wear 2 masks. And here's a clip to kind of prove that.
It likely does because, this is a physical covering to prevent droplets and virus to get in. So if you have a physical covering with one layer, you put another layer on, it just makes common sense that it likely would be more effective. And that's the reason why you see people either double masking or doing a version of an N95.
And if Tyler were here tonight, he would be clicking the sound button for it just makes common sense. Here he is totally going against the science and saying that it just makes common sense. That if you're wearing 2 layers, it's going to be better than 1. Which, yeah, that makes common sense if you think about it in a sense of something like maybe you're getting colds, you're wearing several layers, or maybe in the sense that if it was really doing anything, that it just makes common sense. But later on, there was many studies that showed that 2 masks were worse for you, that there really wasn't anything to it. And even Fauci himself came out later on saying that there's just no reason to be wearing 2 masks. And, there's all of this. Another thing he says is that it keeps droplets from coming in, that 2 layers is going to keep more droplets, keep from more droplets coming in. But many on the left and even Fauci himself talk about how these masks aren't to keep things from coming in. They're not necessarily going to protect you. And this is what they're pressing on us to try to get us to wear masks. It's not necessarily going to protect you, but it's going to protect droplets from getting out. That's been their whole argument this whole time. And here he is, even kind of going against the science here, saying that it's going to protect you. That just doesn't make any sense. But
What? One thing I find interesting about this whole mask thing in general is that, so you can kind of hear my voice a little bit. I just got over getting sick. Allie and I both got the flu. My wife and I just got the flu this past week here. And I tell you what, it was about as bad. I got the COVID back in August. At least that's what they told me. And it was probably just as bad as that. The flu was this time around. It got so bad I had a really bad fever of 102.8. I couldn't get it to go down. I couldn't sleep or eat or anything. So I ended up going to the hospital. I went to the ER, and the nurse in there actually told me, she said, the funny thing is, she said, people are, it's flu season right now, and people are getting the flu, and it's affecting them a lot worse this year than it has in the past. And I kind of smiled, as much as I could. I was in some pain, and I said, well, maybe if we didn't wear those darn masks all the time, our immune system would be better. And she said, I don't think that has anything to do with it. And I just kind of smiled and let it be. But, it got me thinking, I've never had the flu hit me near as bad as it hit me when I got it this year. I've gotten it several times throughout my life, and it's never affected me like this. But, we've been wearing them darn masks everywhere, and our immune systems aren't like they used to be. It's doing more harm than it's doing good.
yeah, and it really hasn't. It's not even just the masks, but it's all the lockdowns and everything. And we have to try to stay inside and stay away from groups of people. And, we have to constantly be using Germ-X. Germ-X kills, they quote 99.9% of germs, but it definitely kills at least 90% of the germs. So you're rubbing Germ-X on your hands constantly. You're killing all the germs. You're not just washing off the dirt and washing off the gross stuff off your hands like you would with soap, but you're killing all the bacteria on your hands. So what usually happens in normal society is you're consuming some of this bacteria and you're strengthening your immune system. Or whenever you're out in public, other people might have different germs that you're catching that you're rubbing up on, maybe touching something at the store or getting close to other people, or, whatever the case may be. You're getting germs out in public. You're touching a guardrail, whatever the case may be, and you're getting these germs and it's strengthening your immune system. That's kind of the way that works. That's why, I know for us as kids, we didn't do a whole lot with medicine. We would take medicine to kind of maybe ease pain and stuff like that. But for the most part, our parents wanted us to strengthen our immune system. Our parents were pretty good with that, where they would do things to make sure that our immune system was strengthened, not keep us on drugs so much, where it was the drug fighting the bacteria rather than our bodies fighting it. And that's really what you do with young children.
How many flu shots did you get as a kid?
Yeah,
I don't remember many.
We did when we were real young, but I think our parents kind of stopped on that.
I
And
remember when
what's funny is
like
I recently got a flu shot. It was since living on my own, and I got the flu the year that I got a flu shot. And I was like, what the heck was the point in this then? Because I don't remember the last time I've gotten the flu, but I got the flu whenever I got that flu shot. I just thought that was so silly. But I'm not anti-vax necessarily, but it does seem kind of silly when you get these vaccines and it doesn't seem like they work. Kind of seems like we might be getting the same of a little bit what we've got now.
I remember when Palmyra, I think it was Palmyra, Indiana, got hit with a tornado, and we were there helping. There was it was a Pekin, that's right.
Yeah.
And the church down there, we went down to help some people with, from the church down there, cleaning up some stuff. And the guy came around, and obviously we're dealing with a lot of tin and metal and stuff. And the guy's coming around giving out what's the shot?
The tetanus shot.
Tetanus shots. And Dad looks at him and says, we won't be having any of that. He said, oh, okay. Well, at least let me get the kids. And he said, they won't be having any of that either. And everybody else from church is getting, oh yeah, that's a good idea. We ought to get this. Dad said, oh no, you're not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, which I would probably promote the tetanus shot, especially with the line of work that you and I are both in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are, and that's the thing too, is that we see all the science coming out, and I guess we'll get to that in a moment. I was about to jump ahead of myself. But yeah, it's so silly to see all of the science, with Fauci. He's constantly going against science, really. And there's one of the things too, that whenever what we just mentioned here just a moment ago, is how he literally says that people should not be walking around in masks. Fauci explains why he was telling people not to walk around in masks. It's not that he was lying. It's not that he was going against the science, because he is the science. He would never lie to you. But what he said, and this is again quotes from back in 2020, but Fauci says, we were told, and he also went on saying, we have a serious problem with the lack of PPEs and masks for health providers. And we decided we really need to save these masks for the people who need them the most. So he told you, just before this was all considered a global pandemic, he told you that you should not be wearing a mask, because he wants people who actually need to have a mask on, people who are more important than you. Now, I get it. He was prioritizing nurses and medical workers, but still, he was so concerned about them that he didn't care if you got sick. He didn't care if this deadly disease, this deadly virus were to attack you. He was more concerned about the healthcare workers, that he didn't care if you got it. He didn't care that you had the correct information. He was too worried about others that it made it okay for him to spread incorrect information. Now, that just seems messed up for him to go back and forth like this.
I don't know if I feel that way so much on that. I think that seems fairly valid to me at least. I do know that when this whole thing first started, they were kind of saying, "Oh, you know, stop with the whole everybody was going out and just freaking mask everywhere, disposable masks. They're throwing away left and right. They're just going through tons of them, and they're having a shortage. People are, you know, I remember our grandma started making masks. She owns a sewing company and started making masks and just, you know, just to donate. And she ended up donating, I think, like 10,000 of them or something like that to some you know people that were giving them out. So I mean, there's definitely a shortage. I don't really know about that as much. I think to his credit, at least on that, yeah, we're probably freaking out a little too early on the masks when those masks are actually being manufactured for doctors and stuff that are around not only coronavirus but tons and tons of other diseases that they need to protect themselves from. Because if you think about a doctor around some of the diseases they're around, if they don't have the proper PPE, then they go out and they, you know, spread it to somebody else who could spread it, and then it gets out of hand, just like COVID. It becomes a pandemic of something else, you know. So, you know, PPE is extremely, you know, important in the medical field, and I think maybe there for a time at least, when COVID first came about, I can kind of see, yeah, him saying, "Hey, chill out on the masks, guys. Not everybody needs to be wearing a mask right now." We weren't to that point yet. We're running out of masks, and there's other people. There's an intended use for this, and if the people that need it get them, we're gonna be in a lot more trouble than we are now. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
but the way that he did this was telling people that the masks aren't going to do anything. The
Sure,
way that he did this was lying to the public. I think that's wrong. And you know that it was wrong for him to say, you know, the way that he said this was that you shouldn't be wearing a mask because it's not going to do anything for you. No one wear a mask. To come out and make a statement that, hey guys, we need to be careful with the supply on masks. We're running low. Maybe tell the suppliers to only allow certain amounts of people, you know, certain amounts to be sold and things like that, rather than going back and forth on your word. What Fauci did was literally say one thing and go back on it. And he went so far to an extreme where he said, "Yeah, you should double mask." And then he went back on it just a couple of days later.
sure.
You know, and I think there's a difference there between, you know, trying to hold it back for people who do need it. And I do want to go to the chat real quick too, just because Cold North brought something up that's a very good comment. But here, Cold North says healthcare workers need the masks to prevent spit blood transmission, with every special and specific cases dealt with in hospitals, not virus transmission. And that's correct, and that's really what the masks are for. And when the masks are used properly, that's where they do well, and that's where they are actually effective in, is so that, again, not like what Fauci said in the past and that clip that we just played a moment ago, where it protects anything from coming in, but it's more or less to protect from those who are wearing the mask to be spitting out. You know, when you're talking, you're going to release some spit. You're going to, you know, whatever the case may be, you are going to have, you know, some sort of germs coming out, blood and spit and things like that. So there are a lot of reasons for medical workers to be wearing those masks, and it is effective in those cases. So that was just a good comment to bring up. But you know, there are certain times where those masks should be used and can be used. I think the way that the masks are used in everyday life is it's just not going to work. And I think that you can prove that by looking at statistics and looking at numbers and seeing the way that they were used.
Do you think Democrats have an issue breathing in them just like Republicans do? Because I swear I can't breathe wearing a mask near as good as I can, and it physically just bothers me to no end.
Yeah, and it I still can't wrap my head around how I see people sit there with masks on and they don't adjust them. They're not sitting there trying to, you know, pull it down to breathe. I literally have it on for 15 seconds because I don't wear it often. You know, I really only wear it. uh, Really, I can't remember the last time that I have worn it. I wore it in a store where they literally asked me at the counter to put one on, so I walked over to their door where they had one and I put it on, finished my purchase, and then left. But that's the most that I've worn it recently. And it's silly to me, but I see people not messing with them and stuff. I think they really get used to it. And it's kind of sad to see that. Yeah. There's this like I just don't get it. I don't know how you can get used to that. Mine's constantly moving around on my face and I have to lift it up and adjust it. I just don't get it.
I had to wear one. Obviously, I went to the hospital the other night, and obviously, I had to have one on in there. And I've already got what I thought might have been the COVID again, or whatever. And I had a little trouble breathing, and my chest was real tight. And then I have to wear this dang mask, and I'm like, "You guys just trying to torture me, aren't you?"
Yeah. Yeah, here you are and you're sick and you're already having troubles breathing and they tell you, "Here, put this over your face.
Yeah,
This will help you."
yeah.
But
I have mine down here and breathing out my nose for a
yeah.
little bit, and the nurse comes over and says, "Hey, I'm gonna have you put that mask on all the way over your nose." I
Well,
said,
and
"Well, if you guys would hurry up and get me out of the waiting room, well, we won't have this problem."
I would like to see the real science on how much perspiration or how many germs or bacteria really come out just your nose alone, just your nostrils. Because I don't think you'll find too much. But another thing that we know that it just I guess a little bit earlier last year in 2021, Fauci had emails leaked that proved that he knew about this virus very early, that he definitely was a part of the virus, or about part of the leak, anyways. And a lot of these emails are very damning to Fauci. They very much show that Fauci knew about this, that he knew about it, and was some sort of part of it. And he also lied about this being a natural mutation, that this was just a virus that naturally happened, that it occurred in nature completely, and even tried blaming U.S. troops and things like that for bringing it over to America. There was all kinds of things that Fauci lied about it, and there was emails that leaked that proved that he was lying about it. And that's what Rand Paul has brought up in the past. Several other senators have brought up in the past. I think Rand Paul is the one that likes to attack Fauci the most. I think he might have a special hatred in his heart for
I'd say so.
Fauci, and rightfully so. I just I don't know how someone can take anything Fauci says and take it seriously, take it as facts, take it as truth. I don't know, and that's something that we need to wake up to. We need to see this, and uh, it's just ridiculous. And something else that Cold North mentioned in the comments that I think is worth bringing up as well. So somebody in that position needs to be elected. Period. I think that's a good comment or a good idea as well, because this position is something we've mentioned. This position does deserve some sort of pay. This position does deserve a pretty good pay, because it's a lot of stress. It's quite a bit, and for someone in that position, they need to be elected. It needs to be somebody who is not just qualified, but is also elected by the people. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's something. But of course, usually, I think I go back and I blame Trump for having Fauci still in office,
Yeah,
because
100%.
because I get that a lot of people want to back up or back Trump up on a lot of things, and I get that. Trump was a great president. He was the best president in my lifetime for sure, and even before that.
Probably ever.
He's definitely up in the top 3 for sure. It's hard to beat Trump, and
Number
especially with
one.
all he did. But when Trump knew what Fauci did in the past, like I mentioned before, you can go back to the AIDS epidemic. There's just all kinds of reasons. There's tons of reasons, and especially when Fauci would sit there and bash Trump. Trump knew that he was not a good doctor. Trump knew that he was not a practicing doctor. Trump knew that he should have been fired, and Trump should have gotten him out of office. Trump should have fired him, done something while he was in office, while he had the power to do it. There were so many reasons for him to have fired Fauci, even before COVID. Now COVID hits, and Fauci's constantly lying and misleading the people, and now we get this kind of information out. Fauci should have been fired. I do put the blame back on Trump a little bit for that. I think Fauci should have been fired long ago. Just to kind of move on real fast, of course, I think we could go on all day talking about Fauci and how horrible he is. But kind of going on to President Harris. And the reason why we call her President Harris is because the former Vice President Joe Biden himself even calls her President Harris. Let's take a look at that.
But all kidding aside, of course, President Harris is a proud Howard alum.
All right. Just in that, like, what was that, 4 seconds? Just in that, like, 4 seconds alone, we see him mess up by saying President Harris. And he said this before. He said this in the past. President Harris.
Well, that's your president. Didn't you know that?
It's almost like somebody's telling him that she's going to be president, and so he just forgets he's not supposed to mention that.
Isn't she an alcoholic?
Yeah. Well, somebody told me to call her president. Who? She did.
Yeah.
President Harris here. She went on with an interview with a one-on-one with USA Today, and overall, I thought the interview was decent because, I mean, I hated the interview because I have to sit there and listen to her talk, and I watched a majority of it. I didn't make it through the entire thing, but she's sitting there. She's constantly lying in the interview. I thought the interview questions were good. I guess I thought they set her up to where she could have answered them in a way that could have led in her favor and Biden's favor, but she was horrible and she lied. She was just totally false about everything she says. Not only that, but she also has something come up here where I thought it was pretty funny to mention. But we'll go ahead and take a look at a part of this interview and some of what she said, and then we'll kind of get to that and kind of look at this interview just a little bit. But she's stating in this interview that she thinks we did better, that today we are better than we were even just a year ago. We'll kind of take a look at this real quick in her interview.
So let me start with saying that people are rightly frustrated with where we are. We're frustrated. We're all frustrated. But I think it's a mistake, and it would be a mistake to suggest that we've not seen great progress. If you think back to March of 2020, we were all wiping down the boxes that we got if we ordered things online. There was no vaccine. Now we have a vaccine, which has proved to be effective, and boosters. Now we have our children back in school. 95% of schools are back open. But we're building back up, we're opening back up, and we are not where we were a year ago.
All right, so just a few things that she says here. She says that we're better off than we were a year ago. So we're better off now than we were. And the reasons that she mentions are that we have vaccines and we have these boosters. Now, I can think of, we mentioned a tetanus shot a moment ago. I can think of some vaccines that need boosters. And the tetanus shot having a booster, I believe it's every 7 years. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think it's every 7 years, something like that.
I don't get shots. I wouldn't know.
But the tetanus shot, it makes sense. I think something like that is going to wear off eventually, right? And I think it makes sense to have boosters. But these boosters were coming out 6 months after this vaccine was put out. I think it's crazy to see this and how soon this booster was put out.
How about how soon the vaccine was put out?
Yeah, I mean the vaccine, and what's crazy is something else is that she wants to take credit for the vaccine. Her and Biden want to take credit for this vaccine, but who was it that actually released that vaccine? It was Trump.
Donald Trump.
So they're taking credit for things that Trump did. They're taking credit for things that weren't even in their control. And really even that, I don't even give credit to Trump for that, because Trump wasn't in the lab. He wasn't the one putting this vaccine together. He wasn't really doing a whole lot other than the fact that he had, maybe he helped get the team together that helped with the vaccines. That might be possible, but overall, it was just these scientists that were actually in the lab and making this vaccine. But I don't even give credit to them, because when we look at statistics and see how this vaccine is going, and even what the CDC and what the government is trying to tell us, what Fauci, the science himself, is going to tell us, is that this vaccine does not stop you from getting, quote, COVID, and it does not stop you from spreading COVID. So how are we better off? How are we better off now than we were a year ago when we look at all of this? it's just mind-boggling. And we'll get into a little bit more about these vaccines in just a moment. We'll kind of expand more on that. But I want to go ahead and play another clip from her interview. She had more, and a really good poster, maybe even a shirt idea that we came up with here. She has a really intelligent quote. This might be the smartest thing I've ever heard Kamala say. We'll go ahead and take a look at that.
Point does the administration say, you know what, this strategy isn't working, we're going to change strategies? 6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree.
Now, just for those who did not catch that or did not understand that, let me put this up on the screen for you. It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Yours truly, President Kamala Harris. Former Vice President Joe Biden's words himself.
Yeah.
That might be the most intelligent thing I've heard her say. But here she is, and it was actually a good question. Because when do we say this isn't going to work and we change up plans? And there's been a lot of people calling for that. There's been a lot of people within the Biden administration calling for them to change the plan, do something different. It's not working. When are they going to change it? And instead she comes back with a lot of nonsense, a lot of things that just, let's be honest, don't make any sense. They don't make any sense at all.
Do you suppose Joe Biden himself answered that question and wrote it down for her? Because that sure sounds like something he'd say.
It sure sounded like something Joe would say. Former Vice President Joe Biden, he's usually pretty bad with putting coherent sentences together, but I think Kamala Harris must be taking speech lessons from him. Maybe dementia is contagious.
It runs in the house.
Maybe dementia is contagious, and we need to start working on a vaccine for that. But she just, like, if you go back and listen to this whole interview, she's just nonstop lying that a year ago we had to wipe down our packages when we got them in the mail because we were worried about this virus, and we had all of these things. And she talks about how the children are back in school. 95% of the schools are open. All of this. She goes on talking about all of this, and it's all just false. We have a lot of schools back open, but there are teachers that are on strike again. We have teachers that are unwilling to go back into schools. They don't want to go into schools. We look at all of this and we see everything, and it's just not true. We're not that much better. And I think that leads us into our next topic, Biden's vaccine mandate. He had a vaccine mandate. Many of us know about this, that he wanted this to go into effect where companies with over 100 employees were going to be required to force vaccines upon their workers. And if their workers weren't going to get it, they needed to test. I believe it was once every 2 weeks, something along those lines. This went to the Supreme Court. There were many people who were suing the Biden administration. The Daily Wire is the one I'm going to mention. They were the first ones to put that lawsuit in, and they were suing the Biden administration for this vaccine mandate, saying that it's unconstitutional, and it absolutely is. And as they went through with this, they went to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court hearing came back. This was denied. It was voted against, and it has been shut down. And with this vaccine mandate, we talk about these vaccines, and we look at the statistics. We look at what's actually going on around us, and it's clear that these vaccines aren't doing much. They might be doing something, and they might help you if you get COVID to have less severe symptoms. That may be the case. That's not the case with people I know that have had the vaccine and had COVID. I don't know how much these vaccines are really doing. The science himself will even tell you that it's not going to stop the spread. It's not going to stop you from getting it. So what are these vaccines doing? How are we that much better when we go back to what Kamala was saying? How are we that much better? And on top of that, how is forcing people to get this vaccine, how is that going to help anything? Because it's not keeping you from getting it, and it's not keeping you from spreading it. Those are the two things that a vaccine is supposed to do. And it's not even going to offer that. It's just pathetic to see all of this and to see Biden and his administration trying to press mandates on the people when it doesn't seem that they're going to help. How is this really going to help anything when we see how much it's really doing? When we see how much it's really helping? How is it helping? But we see all kinds of things going through with this vaccine, and we see many people speaking up about the vaccine. It just doesn't seem like it's going to do much. But I guess we're going to go ahead and jump on forward. We're running on to about 45 minutes here, so we're going to go ahead and jump forward and go ahead and play a little game. Britton and I are both sports fans. We like football quite a bit. It's probably one of our favorite sports, and so we've been paying attention to the NFL playoffs. They have started today. Even though this first one is actually the Bengals and the Raiders, we're going to play a little bit of an NFL pick'em. So of course, the Bengals Raiders, they already played. Who did you have before this game happened tonight?
I definitely had the Bengals.
Of course, I chose the Bengals. I live in Ohio. I was kind of rooting for them a little bit. Plus, I'm an Oklahoma fan. For those who know me, I'm an Oklahoma fan, so I was rooting for. They've got 3 Oklahoma running backs on their roster. Plus, they've got a linebacker as well. So I mean, I gotta go for my former Sooners and root for them. The Bengals did end up winning. They won by a last minute interception. So I definitely chose right there.
Nebraska's got a player on each team, so
Yeah.
I didn't really play much into it. Although I do like my Stanley Morgan. I just think Joe Burrow's playing just an excellent this year.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow, yeah, he's something else too. He's definitely got a lot of talent. I thought that whenever he was back at LSU too, it was crazy to see him playing, and I hated him at LSU only because he whooped up on Oklahoma like crazy in the playoffs. And
I hated to talk about how bad he wanted to go to Nebraska, but we didn't take him.
Yeah,
And then he did what he did, and I was tired of it. But now that he's there, good for him. He's doing well. So yeah, I think we both had the Bengals. We talked about that before just to get that out before the game started.
yeah. I mean the Bengals just have a better team. The Raiders are just full of a bunch of criminals that keep on going to prison, so they don't really have much of a team left.
You have to look up the score to the Pats game. Not now after we pick that game's. What time is it? That game started, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think that one started at 8:30 Eastern, so that one's going right now. I have not seen the score yet.
Not either.
But that one is going right now. Who did you have for the Bills Patriots game?
I've got the Bills. I think the Patriots are definitely a lot better now. Cam Newton's out of town. That's a big plus for the Patriots. But I think the Bills are too much. I think the Bills. I'll take the Bills in this one.
See, I wanted to go with the Bills, and I think they have the more talented roster. When you take, you take Josh Allen and how talented he is, and Stephon Diggs, and they've got a pretty tough defense too. They've got a lot of talent on their end, so I wanted to take the Bills, but I'm going the Patriots. I don't know what the score is right now, but I have a hard time betting against Belichick and the Patriots. Not only that, but Mac Jones is just out of his mind. I looked at the
Patriots lose first round, so
yeah. Well, I mean, I looked at Mac Jones. I looked at the quarterback class from Mac Jones' quarterback class. You take Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and there was even what's his name, Zach Wilson from the Jets, and then there was a few others that came up above him. I think Trey Lance was even before Mac Jones. I looked at Mac Jones coming out of Alabama, and I thought he just showed so much poise. He showed so much potential, and I liked him better than any of them. So I was kind of shocked that he was put off so late. But Mac Jones is out of his mind. I think just revolving around him. Not only that, but if it's, I didn't see the forecast either. But if it's snowy up there in Buffalo, I'm definitely picking the Pats because I forget what game it was, but they just ran at the entire time. They only passed it twice.
sure.
It's just. They don't even need Mac Jones to be in the game, and they've got a tough defense, and they've got Belichick, so I have a hard time voting against him.
Speaking of Mac Jones, we were talking about Casey Thompson earlier, and he's got a lot of comparisons of Mac Jones. I was telling you, I watched
You're just saying that because you want him to be good.
I do. I want him to be good. Obviously, he's coming to Nebraska, but I watched all of every play of last year from Casey Thompson, and that's kind of somewhat who he reminds me of. Just got a good arm, quick decisions. So yeah, Mac Jones, I'll cheer for him, but not for the Patriots. I'm going Bills.
I think I'm going Patriots on that one, just because of
Yeah.
Belichick mainly. We got the Buccaneers, Eagles. Who you taking?
Not the Eagles.
Yeah.
uh,
I think
the
you'd be out of your mind to take the Eagles.
Buccaneers are just too talented. They're not losing first round. They're not losing to the Eagles. That's not happening. I think Tom Brady is gonna come away with yet another win.
I think the only way that the Eagles win is if Tom Brady just dies on the field. Um, there's just too much talent on the Bucks. I think they go. I think they probably go to the conference championship. I don't see any other way around it, and I think that would be them against the Packs. I might be wrong on that, but
Yeah, I would go with them in the Packs
I
for
mean,
sure.
on their side of the bracket, I think it's between them and the Packs. I just don't see the Packers, them and the Packers. I don't see anyone beating them. But yeah, I definitely go with the Bucks. I just think it's too hard to go against them.
But Jalen Hurts is
I
so
like
good.
Jalen Hurts. He's talented, and
Okay. He's okay.
I hope he does well.
He's no Tom
But
Brady. Nobody is. Other than
he's just not going to beat the Bucks,
Aaron Rodgers is the closest thing to Tom Brady.
pretty much. All right, we got the 49ers and Cowboys. Who you taking there?
I'm actually taking Cowboys.
Really?
Yeah, I really am. I think they're playing really good right now. Dak Prescott's got his offense rolling. Their defense is not terrible. They got a pretty decent defense. I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think anybody's blowing anybody out. Well, it's also NFL, so that didn't happen much. But I think I'm gonna go with the Cowboys on this one.
I think that's probably a safe bet. But the only reason why I'm gonna go with the Niners is because
George Kittle.
Deebo Samuel has just been going out of
Sure.
his mind lately. I think if they use him properly and they keep on giving him the ball the way that he deserves it, not only that, but their defense has been really stout the last few games too. I went and watched them live here in Cincinnati, and against the Bengals, they did amazing. It was crazy to see them come up and the Bengals made a little bit of a comeback, pushed it into overtime, but they did overall the 49ers just they've been playing really well lately. I'm going with 49ers there. I
This
think they
was
can
one of
pull it.
my tougher picks, but like I said, I think I'm gonna have to go with Dallas. I think this might be Dallas's year to make a little bit of a push at least.
They have been playing well this year. They really have been. And it's the first time they've been in the playoffs in a few years too. So I think they could pull it off. I'm just going Niners just because I think they can. I think they can do it. The next one is the Steelers, Kansas City.
I've unfortunately seen the Steelers play a few too many games this year. They're not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, Patrick Mahomes and his boys started out the season, in the first couple of games, and everybody thought the world came to an end and the Chiefs were going to suck. And Patrick Mahomes had different ideas. They are too good. They are too talented on every side of the ball. Kansas City Chiefs, 100%.
Yeah, I think this one's probably slightly easier than the Bucks Eagles. It's
Although
between.
Juju's coming back. Did you see that?
Oh no, I didn't see that. But
Juju will be back on Sunday.
if he's back in, then it still doesn't change my position. But I guess that would change it to where I think this is just as easy as the Bucks Eagles then. But yeah, I think the Chiefs run away with this. And you're right. I don't think I think everyone was judging too soon when they thought that maybe the Chiefs would have a down year.
I was on that bandwagon for a minute because my in-laws and everybody are all Chiefs fans, and I don't really care. I mean, I like NFL. I like teams for players more than anything. So
Yeah.
I follow it all. But yeah, kind of part of me is like, all right, well, I'm tired of hearing about them. Maybe they're going to be bad this year, and we can, her dad's a Dolphins fan, so I'm kind of a Lions fan. So both of our teams suck. So we have a Super Bowl party every year, and we're
Yeah.
all sitting in this big barn, and there's Chiefs stuff everywhere, and they're all just going crazy for the Chiefs. And her dad and I are sitting on the couch together, just cheering against them the whole time. But I think they're too good. So
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's too easy of a pick. Of course, this is the last one. Who you going with? The Cardinals, Rams?
I'm going to go opposite of you, and I'm going to go with the Rams because Matthew Stafford. I think they're very talented on defense as well. But holy cow, they're really starting to put some stuff together offensively. They have all year. This is going to be a tough game, though. This is probably the best matchup, I think, in all of playoffs this year.
Between this and the Bills Patriots, I think this one might be a better matchup.
I think this is a better matchup.
Yeah.
I think I could see the Bills winning. Like I said, I don't know. I think the Bills are going to win pretty decent. This one I think comes a little closer. I think LA though by 6. Can we go with that?
Yeah,
I think LA wins a close game.
You think I'm going to pick the Cardinals? I think of course I'm going to be rooting for the Cardinals. I'm a huge Kyler Murray fan, and of course they've got D Hop and JJ Watt. I love Christian. Oh crap! What's his name? Christian Kirk. You know, and then I like Chase Edmonds a lot. You know, he's kind of more or less their backup running back, but he's just kind of a situational running back. They've got just such a stacked roster that I really enjoy watching. Of course, I liked Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. I hated him only because we had to play him in the Big 12.
I'm gonna look up the Pats game real quick.
All right. Yeah. So, you know, of course, I'm going to be rooting for the Cardinals, but I think LA will pull it out. I just think they have too talented of a roster. I think LA is going to win.
You saw it here first.
I can't see it. Oh, 27-3. Buffalo's winning.
Yeah.
But it's the Patriots. I don't think you can count Bill Belichick out yet.
Yeah, that's a 23 points lead in the half.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good one. But yeah, this game, I think I'm pulling for the Cardinals, but I think the Rams will probably win. They've got too talented of a defense, and of course, you know, Matthew Stafford's a great quarterback who was just with a sucky team for a long time, and you know he's finally got a chance where he's got great receivers, great defense to back him up. He's got a decent O line, you know, Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham, and you know
Cooper just had an outstanding year.
Yeah, he has.
He's just barely finished behind. You know, so the all-time leader for receiving yards in a year is obviously Megatron.
Yeah.
But guess who threw those balls to him? Matthew Stafford. He came up, I forget what it was, but it was less than 20 yards short of beating him this year. I mean, Cooper Kupp has had an outstanding season. So that game's tomorrow night at 7:15 my time.
No, the Rams is on Monday. The Rams Cardinals. Yeah, that one's on Monday. But I'll definitely be watching that while I'm at school. Maybe we can get a snow day. We're supposed to get snow here in Ohio, but yeah, that's pretty much all we had. So I just wanted to throw that in there because Britton and I are both NFL fans, you know, or not necessarily NFL. I think we both are college guys. We've always grown up college. We don't really have NFL teams per se. I root for the Cardinals because of Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, but that's pretty much all we had for sports. We're going to go ahead and get into this week in history. All right, for this week in history, of course, this is the segment where we always go back from the past week and look at some things that might have intrigued us, something that we found that happened this past week in history. What did you have for this week?
So this week in history, actually this day in history, let's call it that for a second, Martin Luther King was actually born. He's born in Atlanta, Georgia, and you know, obviously we all know who Martin Luther King is and what he means to the African American community. I think a lot of things that Martin Luther King did were very noble and were very, you know, obviously big part of history. So that's what I got.
Yeah, that's a good one too, and I think that's something special. I think Martin Luther King himself, you know, or Martin Luther King Jr. I think he was he's definitely a great figure to look at. You know, he was actually a good person, and he had a lot of good morals and a lot of good things that he fought for. You know, I think he fought for good things. Of course, BLM kind of goes against a lot of what he stood for. He did not stand for rioting. He did not stand for looting and all the stuff that they're doing today. I think if he were around today, he'd be speaking out against a lot of that stuff. Martin Luther King was definitely, he was born today.
Definitely a hero.
What's that?
Certainly a hero.
Yeah, he did a lot of good things. He did a lot of protesting, and as he was protesting, there was others who were rioting, and he spoke out against it. But yeah, Martin Luther King. January 12th, 2010, not too long ago, that was when Haiti was struck with a massive earthquake. It was a huge 7.0 earthquake, I believe. I didn't write that down in my notes, but it did so much damage that they're still recovering today, even though they got lots of help and lots of support from other countries all over the globe. They had this earthquake hit them and it destroyed Haiti. And it was a horrible earthquake. I kind of did a double whammy here and also put down, this is another one that I saw that was really cool, that the U.S. Surgeon General Luther Terry, he announced the definitive link between smoking and lung cancer. And this was back in January 11th, 1964. So I thought that was pretty cool back whenever we found out about this link between smoking and lung cancer. Before it was just a normal thing to smoke. He came out and he found that, there was a lot of speculation. I think back in the 1930s is whenever they started realizing that there's a lot of lung cancer kind of spread. It seems like the numbers are growing, but then they ended up going on and finding out. And our own U.S. Surgeon General Luther Terry is the one who announced this definitive link between them. So he was able to kind of give evidence that was actually able to prove that smoking was leading to lung cancer. So pretty cool. And it even led to a lot of, what's that?
You suppose he's the reason we don't have any commercials for smoking?
Yeah. Yeah, and for a long time after that, a lot of smoking, a lot of cigarette companies and tobacco companies were putting out, trying to promote their cigarettes and things like that that were a little bit better. They had better filters and they were made with less tar and less nicotine and stuff like that. And they were just trying to make it to where it was healthier so that the government didn't illegalize smoking. So they were fighting pretty hard for that. But they were able to successfully keep smoking around, unfortunately. So if you are a smoker, just know that it will lead to lung cancer. It's no way around it. It will lead to lung cancer. No, not really. It is possible. It can lead to lung cancer. So just know your risks. And I suggest you not do it. That is what I am saying.
Go to Grizzly Wintergreen instead.
If you need nicotine, just go to Patches or something. Do something to get yourself off of smoking. It's gross. I like myself a nice big cigar every once in a while, but that's a little different. I think that won't lead to any kind of cancer.
You also didn't else the smoke in a cigar.
Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely something I suggest you staying away from.
I guess you could inhale it if you had, like, say you were around a bunch of people and you're on a patio and you're starting to inhale it so bad that you started vomiting.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad. But and I do suggest, and not from personal experience of my own at all, but if you are smoking, especially cigars, because the cigar smoke is very strong. But if you've had a few colas and stuff with the boys and you're smoking cigars, I suggest not sitting downwind because all that cigar smoke may get to you. I don't, it's just what I've heard, but it can get to you. So just be careful. But anyways, that's pretty much all that we have for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us, especially for those who are putting in the chat. Of course, I want to encourage you to share and help us out. Another great way to help us out is just by going over to Apple Podcast or Spotify for Android users. Just go ahead and give us a 5-star rating. That's a huge help to us. And it's so simple. All you got to do is sit there and hit the 5 stars, and it helps us out. It's not too much on your part. So we greatly appreciate any and all support. Of course, you can always go over to thepatrioticyouth.com/shop, and you can check us out there and check out our shop and see what we've got in store. And then, of course, our sponsor today is We the People Holsters. You can always go over to wethepeopleholsters.com and use code INSANE for 15% off their shop. They've got so many great things. That's another great way to help support Politically Insane. I just want to thank you all so much, and you can always visit and check out all of our sources over at politicallyinsane.us. You can check us out on our website. Make sure to tune in again next week so that you can join us again for our live stream, another Politically Insane late night show. You can join us again next week on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, as long as all goes well. If we are not here, then we will make sure to put out posts and make sure to let you guys know if you hit the subscribe and notification bell on YouTube. That may help out with warning you. If you follow us on Twitter or Facebook, I think those are better at giving you notifications whenever we go live. So make sure to go and follow us on social media. Find us on there. If you've got social media, give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow, whatever the case may be. And that's pretty much all we have for today. We will see you all next week.